Happy Hour is presented by Corona. Please drink responsibly.
Pardon the interruption, but I'm Mike Wilbon. We were bumped yesterday for NBA draft coverage. Tony, what'd you do with your day off?
Tony Kornheiser sat here quietly, and I waited for today's show.
Oh, yeah, that's a really good use of time. That's very efficient. You know, economy of movement.
It rained all day in Washington yesterday.
That's all it does. You told me this for
today.
4 straight days.
There's a lot of rain. Now, we hadn't had rain in a long time, but there's a lot of rain. You know,
I don't do rain.
Growing funguses on my feet.
I don't do rain.
Welcome to PTI, boys and girls. In today's episode, Chris Paul joins the Warriors. Marcus Smart goes to the Grizzlies, and Wake Forest gets eliminated from the Men's College World Series. But we begin today with last night's NBA draft, dominated by Victor Wembanyama going first overall and being totally charming when interviewed. Wilbon, I'm sure you watched every minute. What storyline were you most intrigued with?
No, Tony, I was on a plane most of it, but I caught up with it, reviewed all of it, and I've been exposed to Victor Wembanyama a little bit longer than you because I started following him a year ago when it was clear that this was going to be the result, that he was going to be the first player chosen by somebody. It wound up being San Antonio. That drama evaporated on, lottery night, here in Chicago a month or so ago. But Tony, what strikes me about him, and I've been obsessively following him, is his poise, is the way he engages, his intellect, or what certainly seems like that at 19 years old. He went to a team, Tony, that was the dregs of a really good league in the world, the French league, and he lifted that team by leading it in points, rebounds, block shots, and he gets his fair share of assists. And he took them from nothing to first, where they lost to a Monaco team that has 7 former NBA players, and he's 19, okay? He's that kid. And so there seems to be some combination of Magic, Bird, Duncan, Robinson, Olajuwon. He seems to have all that going. And then you listen to him. He's learned English. He's polished. He's ready to go. This league is so damn lucky to have this kid fronting for it. As you get LeBron and KD and all these, Steph Curry, they get older. And it's time to start to transition. To transition to this kid. This league and its sponsors are so fortunate, it appears, at this moment.
So I have a different experience than you. I watched about 2 hours of the draft, and the most intriguing storyline to me was how few of the people I knew of and how few of them I had seen.
Yeah.
The first 5 drafts, first 5 picks, only Brandon Miller of Alabama had played college basketball. So for me, it becomes like the NFL draft when you run out of quarterbacks, and I don't know anybody else. I don't know anybody else who is out there. I mean, the first kid who was technically an upperclassman, a sophomore at UConn, Hawkins, is that his name? I think he went
DC kid.
13 or 14. There were only 3 seniors who, I'm going to keep talking for a while. There were only 3 seniors who went in the first round, and 2 people who have later signed, but whose names we know very well. Oscar Tshiebwe, who was the College Player of the Year 2 years ago at Kentucky, and Drew Timme, who you loved at Gonzaga.
I love him.
Not picked. 60 picks. Not picked. So, the further you go in college, the harder it is to get picked. I will say this, and Wembanyama dominates the draft. So the question becomes, when does he deliver? And deliver to me means when does he get in a final? It's the same way I felt about Joe Burrow getting drafted 1 at Cincinnati.
Right.
And he delivered in 2 years. Now, the football is a lot different than basketball.
Yeah.
But if I'm not mistaken, Kareem won the championship in his second year. Shaq got to a championship in his second year. Walton won a championship in his third year. So to me,
not
Mike,
going to happen.
Not going to happen that quickly. Well, 3 or 4 years. I think that's what will happen. I think it's easier in basketball.
Does he have to really? Because Michael Jordan didn't win till his 7th or 8th, and neither did LeBron.
Not a big man. I'm talking about big men. I'm talking about dominant big men.
Okay.
Dominant big men is different. That's what I'm talking
Duncan
about.
won
Just dominant
early.
Big men.
But there were some great guys who never won. Tone, Kareem, you just put the bar impossibly high.
That's
Kareem.
Right. No, you
and he
did.
had Oscar.
No, Mike.
He had Oscar.
You said
this
the league
kid doesn't
should
have
be happy,
Oscar.
be grateful. No,
Yes.
come on.
That he is the face of your league.
Okay.
That's marketing. We'll get
So
to the
to
win. He
me,
ain't going to win in his first 3 years.
You
Tony.
hate marketing. You
Yeah, I
loathe
do.
marketing.
Hate the marketers.
To me, 3 or 4 years. We'll see. We'll see.
Yeah, I might go 5. I might push you a little bit. Now, let's unpack yesterday's big trade. Your Wizards rerouting Chris Paul, my man, to the Warriors in return for the once prized Jordan Poole. Tony, let's start with the 4-time champs. What does this trade do for the Golden State Warriors?
Okay, so I am cognizant of the fact that you and Chris Paul are tight. All right, so I understand. This is very puzzling to me. Chris Paul, to me, makes the Warriors older and slower and smaller, and I don't know why you would want that, so I don't know why you would make the trade. But I know why you make the trade.
I'll get to
you. You make this trade because you want to get rid of Jordan Poole. You don't think he's as good as you thought when you paid him the money. Okay, you paid him the money. And you want to use that money to bring back Draymond Green, and you want to tell Draymond Green, we got rid of Jordan Poole, so all is forgiven, please come back. To me, Chris Paul is a connecting rod in this thing, that he's a pawn in a larger game. Because, Mike, I don't see him as being particularly good on that team. Now, he's a Hall of Famer, but he started 1,200 games in the league, and he's played 35 to 40 minutes 1,200 different times. He can't do that on the Warriors. He likes to play slow. They like to play fast. It would not surprise me. You know more than I. It would not surprise me if he never played there, because I think of the 30 teams in the league, he doesn't fit.
Let me explain to you how wrong you are. And I want you to write this in marker, not just ink. The Golden State Warriors last year.
I got a flare tip, baby.
They're
marker.
starting. Listen to me. You're puzzled. I'm not. So listen up. Learn something. The Golden State Warriors starting unit last year was 1 in efficiency, in production. Number 1 in the league out of 31 starters. The reserve unit was somewhere between middle of the pack and last, depending on which week you checked it. So when you have guys like Moody and Kuminga and whoever else Golden State winds up putting around, a floor general they never had. They tried to play Draymond with the second unit. Didn't work because that's too many minutes. They put Steph Curry out there with the second unit. Didn't work, too many minutes. Nothing worked with the second unit. So you bring Chris Paul in, and guess what? You're not asking him to play 34 minutes. You want him to play 20. Some nights he can finish with the big boys, but you need a bench because everybody in your team is old, as you just said. They're all 35 and 33 and older, and most of them 35. So Chris Paul comes in. He doesn't need to play fast. He needs to figure out, and he will, because he's a genius at that position and in that orchestration.
So
how to get that second unit to pick up and support the starters. Of course he's willing to do it. Here's what I also know.
I would have thought he wants to play. So 20 minutes, 20 minutes is a big cut in time.
Here's what I know. I'm not guessing. Chris Paul's thrilled at this move. Thrilled.
Okay.
Ecstatic. And this is going to be, he's gone to war with Steph Curry. They were friends, and their families have been friends from North Carolina when they were boys. And when you go to war with somebody that you respect like Draymond and Steph Curry, and then you come together later in it, this should really, really, really be an asset to Golden State. And I'm surprised so many people don't see that.
So we are on polar opposites.
Yep.
And we'll see. We'll see.
We will see.
Let's finish the NBA up with a review of the actual final three-way trade that sent Kristaps Porzingis from the Wizards to the Celtics. At first, it was believed that Malcolm Brogdon would end up going to the Clippers. But in fact, Marcus Smart ended up going to the Grizzlies. Wilbon, who was more improved after this trade, Boston or Memphis?
Memphis. I don't know that Boston's improved at all. As a matter of fact, I don't like the trade at first blush. I'm not going to go crazy. I'm not going to say put this in marker. But my instincts say, I'm sorry, you got a guy, Kristaps Porzingis, who has never proven squat after April 1st. Never. Never been important. Never mattered. Never shown you anything. And you gave up a guy. I don't care about the stats. I don't care about the metrics. This man, Marcus Smart, is the heart and soul of your team. I'm not guessing at that either. Heart and soul and maybe the intellect. And I understand, Tony, having to acknowledge that something just ain't exactly right with the Celtics because they keep coming up short. I get that part. But I ain't trading Marcus Smart, who will dive into a basket stanchion on the parquet wood floor and bust his head open. He gives everything. He passes the ball, which nobody else on that team does particularly well, all right? Marcus Smart will challenge people, hold people accountable. He's the guy in that locker room who matters way more than Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum when it comes to that intangible. And you're going to give up, he's a Celtic, and you're going to give up a Celtic, somebody who reminds me a little bit of Dennis Johnson, for Porzingis? No, no, no. No.
Okay, so I love this show today more than I've loved shows in a long time because we could not be further apart on this story either. Now, I was surprised when they gave up Marcus Smart because he's a great defensive player and because he's a glue guy. But I'm figuring they thought, you know what, it's not working with Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, and maybe with Brogdon out there more minutes, maybe it worked more, so he became expendable. What does he do for Memphis? Well, he's dependable and he's available, and their best player is out for at least 25 games. And their best player, John Morant, his future in that team is uncertain. So maybe Marcus Smart is great there, but here's where you and I disagree. Because I think Porzingis brings Boston one step closer to a championship. He is a great scorer.
Based on what?
Wait, write it.
What's he ever
You know what?
done?
Write it down in marker.
All
okay,
right.
because let me give you the marker because I did it for you. Right. So we'll pick it up and we'll throw it later. Here's the thing about him. He's big, he can score, and he can rebound. They wanted to get bigger. Now, here's my doubt about him. My doubt is not your doubt. He hasn't been on good teams. My doubt is this is his fourth team in 5 years, so maybe there's something wrong with him. Maybe there is, and I'm willing to concede that. But if he's durable and if there's nothing wrong with him, I think he brings them closer to a championship. That's me. Let's take a break.
Tony, wait. Before we get to a break.
What? We're running out of time.
No, we're not.
Yeah.
Marcus Smart can walk in that Memphis locker room and say what nobody's been able to say, which is, hey, you little punks, shut up and pay attention, and let's at least win a playoff series. Let's do that.
I agree,
he can
but
do that in Memphis.
But maybe he couldn't do that anymore at Boston.
Maybe.
Coming up, LSU's walk-off home run beat Wake, but was there a better play earlier in the game?
Don't lose that marker. Make sure you hold on to that. The Reds have won 11 straight. The Braves have a streak of their own. What's going to give tonight?
Paper-mate flare tip.
That's
Magic
cool. That'll
marker
work.
from
That'll
the
work.
old
Mark
days.
it down, baby. Mark it down.
Pardon the Interruption is presented by Corona. Please drink responsibly. Part of Happy Hour. Interruption is presented by Corona. Please drink responsibly. Part of Happy Hour.
Time for toss-up. Two men enter, one man leaves, finishes the show, then shudders as he realizes we are entering the dead zone of sports for the next 2 months. What's first?
Toss-up, more outstanding play by LSU last night. The defensive play that saved the game or the home run that won it?
The more outstanding play is the defensive play to save the game. Trey Morgan makes a spectacular play on a suicide squeeze, getting the runner at home. If he doesn't make that, maybe it doesn't go to extra innings. Maybe Wake wins the game right there. But the headline is the home run. Tommy White hits a home run, the first time ever in a College World Series, Mike, that a scoreless game ends on a walk-off home run in extra innings. This kid is going to eat for free for the rest of his life in Louisiana. And you and I both know if you can eat for free in any state in the country, you want to eat in Louisiana, in New Orleans. So that's the headline.
Tony, it's the home run, and it's the home run on anything you want to answer about that game. I was rooting for Wake. You know, one of my dear friends who I grew up with and played Little League Baseball with, shout out to Philip Anderson, went to Wake. And so I root for Wake. And, you know, it was just too bad that they didn't win this game. Tony, the home run is a shocking play. It's just an oh, my God situation play.
It doesn't just walk off Wake. It walks you into the College World Series final.
That's right.
I understand.
But, Tony, look, the defensive play, Tony, the defensive play is great, Tony, but there's more game to be played. You said maybe the game is, maybe it doesn't. The home run is not a maybe.
Next?
Toss up.
Let's go.
Who you got in tonight's first place matchup? The Braves or the Reds?
Okay, so first of all, whoever thought that the Cincinnati Reds would be in first place in late June? And whoever thought they'd be riding an 11-game heater? And the answer is nobody, not even Johnny Bench. But the Braves have 8 of their own. Okay, apparently this is the third time in 100 years, Mike, in 100 years, that teams with streaks of 8 or more are going to play each other. It's only the third time in 100 years. Who do I like in the game? The game is in Cincinnati, and Atlanta, I believe, is starting a rookie. But, there's always a but, Cincinnati is starting a pitcher. Let's get this number out. With a 6.47 ERA this year, and in June, if you like a high ERA, it's 10.13, which sounds like a tax form, so I'm going with the Braves.
Tony, I'm going with the Braves, too, because 11 is a lot. It's too much. If Johnny Bench, Joe Morgan, Dave Concepcion, Doggy Perez, George Foster, Cesar Geronimo, who did I forget in that
Pete
starting
Rose,
lineup?
baby. Pete Rose.
Oh, yeah. Guy named Pete Rose, the hit king.
Pete Rose.
I mean, look,
Yeah.
Tony, if they couldn't get 11 in a row, 11 is as long as it goes. It can't go to a dozen. The Braves are the second best team in baseball. The Braves have got to win, right? They've got to stop this. The Braves streak goes another one or two longer, and Cincinnati's time to be done.
A 10.13 ERA in June. That's a lot. That's it. Let's take one last break. Still to come, Tua is doing something unusual to protect himself from future hits.
And this next thing depresses me. The Bulls, just more bad news about Lonzo Ball. I may have messed up. Philip Anderson, my man Philip Anderson, who I played Little League Baseball with, I'm thinking, wait a minute, maybe he went to Vandy and didn't go to Wake. Maybe he went to Vandy. Vandy was in the World Series too.
Pardon the Interruption is presented by Corona. Please drink responsibly. Part of Happy Hour.
Happy time, people. Happy 39th birthday yesterday, Dustin Johnson. DJ was arguably the biggest catch of the American golfers who jumped to the Saudi Tour last year, considering Mickelson has passed his competitive prime and Koepka had been injured and slumping. Johnson jumped quietly and has never been particularly talkative about the move. He tends to keep his head down and avoid controversy. DJ has 2 majors, the 2016 U.S. Open and the 2020 Masters. He has missed the cut in 3 of his last 11 majors, but tied for 6th in the 2022 British Open, and even with a 2-over last Sunday, tied for 10th in last week's U.S. Open. He will never be the most accomplished athlete in his family, as his father-in-law is Wayne Gretzky.
Ooh, don't mention Gretzky in a positive light. Bob Ryan will be rolling over on his sofa. By the way, though, he makes a lot more money than his father-in-law. I mean, $100 million, north of $100 million from Live alone. A lot more money than the great one, even though the great one is, sorry, Bob, the great one.
He's the great one.
Yeah.
Happy anniversary, Del Curry. On this day 35 years ago, Curry was Charlotte's first pick in the simultaneous Hornets and Miami Heat expansion drafts. Curry and fellow draftee Muggsy Bogues both stayed about a decade in Charlotte. Curry had played 1 season in Utah and 1 season in Cleveland before being made available to the expansion teams. Miami's first pick, Arvid Kramer, never played for the Heat. Curry averaged 14 points a game in Charlotte, mostly as a 6th man, and remains there today on the Hornets broadcast. A few months before this expansion draft, Curry's son Wardell II was born. Perhaps you've heard of him. He goes by his middle name, Steph.
Dell, the father, is pretty good with a golf club too, Tony, but he's gotten stuck in a place where he cannot beat his son anymore. And then last year, I ran into him and he felt triumphant. I think he had beaten Steph for like the first time in years. You know that feeling. Can you beat Michael ever again in golf?
I can't even come within 20 shots. No, of course not. Happy trails to next season for Lonzo Ball. The Chicago Bulls chief basketball executive, Arturas Karnisovas, is preparing for Ball to miss the entire 2023-24 season with a recurring problem in his right knee. This past March, Ball underwent his 3rd surgery in the last 14 months. Karnisovas says Ball is recovering nicely, but also said, quote, "Our expectation is he's not coming back next season," unquote. Ball, the former number 2 overall pick by the Lakers in 2017, went to the Bulls 2 years ago. He has played 35 games there and last played in January of 2022, and it's not unreasonable to wonder if Ball will ever play again.
Tony, at the end of those 35 games, or about at the end, the Bulls were the 1 seed in the East, and they had a completely different look with Lonzo Ball running the show and without him, and it's just sad. It really is.
It is. He's a really good player.
Yes.
All right. No errors today. Let's go to the big finish. NFL owners will reportedly meet on July 20th to vote on the sale of Commanders. Terrible name. What do you expect?
The Josh Harris group to own officially the Commanders. The Bills extended head coach Sean McDermott and GM Brandon Beane through 27. Objections?
I have no objections. They've made the team better, but at some point you have to get to the Super Bowl, right? You got to actually get there with that talent. Wander Franco of the Rays has been benched for last night and tonight. Is that justified?
I mean, he's too young and too good to keep on the bench for long. Maybe they're just trying to get his attention. He's hitting 287. Tua is taking jiu-jitsu to learn how to fall in a safer way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you know, you got to try everything, including coating yourself in canola oil and bubble wrap. But he gets hurt all the time, Mike. Last one, the Pirates have lost 10 straight. Will the Marlins hand him number 11 tonight?
Too many streaks going on. I don't know, but Arise is at 397. I'd like to see him get back above 400.
We're out of time. We will try and do better the next time. Happy birthday tomorrow to the baby boy Bootsy, and hello to all the littles at Jingle Fest.
I'm Mike Wilbon. Have a great weekend, Knuckleheads. You can get the podcast on the ESPN app or Apple Podcast. Did I really confuse on the Vandy? He did the best Harry
They're
Carey
both good academic
imitation
schools
in the neighborhood. I know. But, you know, it's been a long draft week. I'm tired. PTI. Only that it was so predictable. It was, you know, a total bore. I mean, it went the way everybody's mock draft wound up being, you know, either accurate or accurate in the most, you know, to the great part. So the draft is not what intrigued me. It was the other movement. It was the trades. It was Marcus Smart leaving Boston and going to Memphis. Porzingis, you know, going to Boston and people thinking that's an upgrade when I don't. Chris Paul going to Golden State, which a lot of people don't think makes sense, and I do. So there were a lot of things that happened with veteran players on teams that are in the spotlight, that matter, that are contenders. And I think all of that mattered. Of course, Bradley Beal a few days earlier going to Phoenix. All that mattered in the draft was like an also-ran to me. You know, I don't know that other than Wembanyama, it was like, eh.
So this is interesting to me because you are mentioning people who have been in the NBA for years and years and who we have a sense of.
Right.
And in the draft, and we have a sense of Wembanyama because of all the publicity around him. Okay, we have that sense. But in the draft, we don't know any of these people. Like, I won't say we. I don't know any of these people
I didn't know many.
At all. I mean, there's in the top 5 picks, only one, Brandon Miller of Alabama, had gone to college. There were only 3 seniors taken in the entire draft, obviously leading you to believe that if you play long enough in college, you have played too long. For example, Oscar Tshiebwe, who 2 years ago was the College Player of the Year, undrafted. He signed, but undrafted. Drew Timme, who you loved. You loved him at Gonzaga. Undrafted. 60 picks, undrafted. So for me, it becomes almost like the NFL draft when the quarterbacks are done. And I could sit there and I have no idea who's actually going to play next year.
For these size-challenged teams, can't Drew Timme help you? Really? You'd rather play small ball than have him? Is that what the NBA has come to? It's like the 6'4" and under league now. Unless you can go to 7'4", then they'll take you number 1. That's it. We're done. Back to you.